Hey, how's it going? Welcome to Life in Comedy. I'm your host, Will Beckton. As the name implies, this is a show about comedy and comedians. Am I a comedian? I'm not sure. But I do know that I've been around a ton of funny people and don't seem to get tired of it. I performed at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theatre in New York in the early 2000s, so I guess you could say my training was in improv. I also worked at Conan for about 12 years and was around a lot of stand-ups during my time there. I'm curious about what comedians have in common, as well as what they don't have in common. Were all comedians class clowns in high school? Not necessarily. Is stand-up a more valid form of comedy than improv? There seems to be some debate about that. I want to find out what drives certain people to do certain types of comedy, because sometimes it doesn't really seem all that voluntary. My guest today is Bobby Moynihan. Bobby was at UCB around the same time I was. Bobby was also on Saturday Night Live for 9 seasons, which is impressive. It was great catching up with Moynihan and hearing what he had to say about his journey thus far.
Hello.
Hey, man.
How are you?
Thanks for doing this. I'm good.
Thank you for having me.
Bobby and I know each other through UCB in the early 2000s. That's a bank.
It's a bank.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Savings and loan, actually. How did you find out about the theater?
I remember, I think I was doing a play in the city. God, what was it? It was called Final Exit.
Okay.
Very, like a black box theater. Like, are we all dead? Like one of those. It was a very noble effort.
Yeah.
And I was walking back to Grand Central and just taking like a weird route. And I think I was just walking around the city and I just saw the Upright Citizens Brigade sign.
Oh, yeah.
Like the symbol.
This was the 22nd Street?
On 22nd Street.
Yeah.
And I remember going like, oh, well, I love that TV show.
Yeah.
And then went in and saw Pound.
Yeah.
I think it was like Colton Dunn.
All the Naked Babies.
Ari Voukidis. And it was like they were doing an improv show. And I remember I knew Ari Voukidis because he was in a band called Ska King Crab.
I didn't know that.
He's in like a ska band in Westchester County.
Oh, man. How come I didn't know
my
that?
good friends were in a band called Jiker, and like they knew him. Like I weirdly knew of Ari Voukidis.
Yeah.
And then he did a scene with Colton, and Colton opened a fake window and climbed out, and it got a huge laugh. And I was like, oh, I want to do this.
Totally.
Like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, Colton, man, that guy could bring it. He'd already done stuff in Minnesota prior, so I was in level 1 with him, but he was already like on his way.
He's one of those just born to do it guys.
Totally. Yeah.
But I think that was it. Like, and then like immediately like dropped everything and just kind of hung out there until I got SNL.
Yeah, so until you started getting like paid to do things.
Yeah, it was a long process, but it was the best.
Yeah,
I mean, those were like It's funny to look back now at those days, and it's nuts. Like everyone we knew is working, and like it's nuts.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I was pretty aware of that at the time, but you don't know the specifics of how things are going to play out. You know, like it's fun to see like the different routes people have taken, whether by design or just happenstance. Like,
yeah, I see now. Now the overwhelming thing for me is just how absolutely naive I was to the entire thing. And still feel that way.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's just bonkers.
Yeah, I wasn't looking that far ahead. I just wanted to get on that stage. So you were on Police Chief Rumble, and I like to read the names off the Herald teams just because it's fun to hear all these names together. Katie Dippold, Angelique George, Jeff Hiller, Chris Kula, David Martin, Will McLaughlin, Bobby Moynihan, Charlie Sanders.
Yeah, the funniest improv team ever.
That was, I mean, you got a SNL performer, you got a Key and Peele writer, Parks and Rec, and screenwriter, and everybody on that list is fucking amazing. So
Katie's fine.
Yeah.
No. Katie's a good.
Well, Katie, if anybody
probably
needs to be knocked down a peg, maybe.
Yeah. probably the most talented out of all of us. Yeah, the best. I love them with all my heart. We email every birthday the same exact bits we've been doing for 20 years. Sinbad's mentioned a lot. We love Sinbad.
I saw Sinbad. I looked at the Improv Resource Center wiki, which I'm assuming is like a continuation of the Kevin Mullaney thing. I assume. But they talked about unjustified Sinbad impersonations, and one thing jumped out at me.
Wait, this is document that makes me so happy.
Yeah, this is wicked. And then Sideways Dracula. What is that?
Exactly what it sounds like. It's just Dracula, but he's like this. He's just sideways.
Did you guys trade off doing Sideways Dracula, or was that one person?
It was more of a punishment. It was just like if you were walking and no one had something, it would just be like, whatever, Sinbad, or here comes Sinbad, here comes Sideways Dracula, because we were great.
That's amazing.
Because we were comedians who followed the rules.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing is they said you were kind of like, troublemakers and broke the rules or whatever. What was that?
I have no idea.
Was that intentional, or was that's just like a way y'all meshed?
I think we were just like a silly group of people that got along, and like it was all so naive and wonderful, and we were just it's funny to me, like, to think about the politics of it, because I think there's like the part of me that understands now all that stuff and like what we were supposed to be doing, but like what it boiled down to is a bunch of people in Boston Market crying because their improv team got broken up. Like it's so it was more emotional for me than like calculated.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel so naive about everything.
No, I mean, I will
in hindsight, like just going like, we just wanted to be funny. Like,
no, funny trumps everything else, you know? But yeah, and then you guys did a sketch show, which Fogelnest directed, Piece of Bullshit Pie.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That was a blast. Like that's just even hearing you say that, like, yeah, we did. Like we did that. Like we were so eager. There was such a like, we're going to do a show. Like it was the best. It was the best time of my life. I mean, easily.
I was on Team Brooklyn with Charlie Sanders, that guy's
absolute
fucking
genius.
Man, is that guy funny?
The funniest. Funniest.
Were you guys ever kind of like writing partners or just did a lot of stuff together? Like,
I mean, yeah, forever. Buffoons, me, him, and Eugene Cordero.
And Eugene's really funny too.
The greatest.
Yeah, it was great seeing him in the History of the World Part 2. I think he's in like the Landing Craft sketch or whatever. Yeah. I love the stuff that you did before SNL, like kind of in the interim. I don't really know. I might be getting the timeline wrong, but Derrick Comedy, like you did some stuff with them, right? Was it kind of obvious that Donald Glover would just be on some sort of rocket ship to become who he became, or was he just kind of like a young funny guy?
No, in the sense of like all I remember was like the three of them. Like it was like DC, Dom, and Donald. Like I remember showing up. They were like, "Hey, we're shooting a movie. Do you want to be in it?" And I was like, "Sure." But like when I showed up, there was like a table for catering and like a lighting truck. And I was like, oh, like
different than what you're used to seeing at that time. Like,
well, I just remember immediately thinking like these kids who are like 5 or 6 or whatever years younger than me are in college and they're already like making a movie.
Yeah.
Like I remember thinking like, whoa,
yeah,
these guys know what they're doing.
Totally.
I got a phone call like, what are you doing Sunday? Can you stop by DC's place? We're shooting this video. And I went by for an hour and cut to 25 years later in an airport. Anytime I pass anyone from the military, they're like, bro, right, from Derrick Comedy. Like, and it's just like, yeah. That was 23 years ago.
That's like, so crazy.
It's just so they were fun and wonderful. And they would be like, do you want to do this? And then the next day you would be at like a shoot at their house.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, these guys get stuff done. Like we were lazy. Buffoons was like, well, we'll get to it.
I know. For me, it makes me think of Dan Powell because I was in the syndicate with Dan Powell. And
so funny.
And he was old, but really funny, but just hyper organized and just really like I would look at him and I'd be like, because he was a little bit younger too. And I'd be like, Jesus Christ, this guy's like rolling calls, like, like on break at practice. Everybody else is kind of fucking around and he's like, researching a Daily Show.
I'm not good at that side of it. He's great. But I remember him, Ed Helms, and Charlie Sanders had a show that I think I saw every single performance.
Charlene.
Yeah, sure.
The
best. I loved that group.
I still remember, I can't remember the specifics of it, but whatever the thing it was where Helms was an audience plant. That like there was one, it was really funny. They did a pretty good job of kind of hiding his like the fact that he was in there, and everybody was like, "Whoa, what the?" And then Human Giant. Did you write for Human Giant, or what was the involvement? Human Giant is always kind of a mystery to me.
I don't know if that's the right word for it. I think me and Charlie showed up they were kind enough to say, hey, do you want to come work on an episode? We sat there all week and like wrote some bits. I remember one bit we wrote was Paul Scheer was a guy named Micro Dave who had a microwave in his belly.
Oh, man.
He was part man, part microwave, and everyone just wanted to hang out with him because he had a microwave in his belly, and it didn't get on, and I think that was it. I think we left after that.
Oh my God. That's hilarious.
I just remember it was like a cool like experience for both. Like Charlie had done I think writing before, but I kind of hadn't. So and still am very light on that, but like he was more prepared than I was, I think, and it was a fun experience.
Yeah, I mean,
got to meet a lot of people.
That was awesome with Paul Scheer, Rob Hubel, and Aziz Ansari, and then Jason Walliner directed it, which was really
Tom
cool.
Giannis was around.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it was just like a crazy brain trust. Nick Mugis edited some of it, or like he worked as an editor on it.
I think I had done like a short for Other Music with Jason Walliner and Aziz or something. Maybe that's how it happened. Or met Aziz through that, and then doing like Torco maybe or something. I don't even remember. It all blends together.
Do you remember Gelman's Night of a Thousand Cats?
Of course. How can you forget? I think I have the flyer in my garage.
Oh man, I'd love to see that. I went to I
have a trunk of just every flyer from that era. It's like
that's amazing.
700 pounds.
Oh my God, I have a few, but nothing approaching that. But I'm
a hoarder.
But that's a good brand of hoarding. But the stage show, super funny, and then they reprised it for Funny or Die Presents, and Walliner directed that. So I went to the taping of that and kind of got to see him work, and I was like, oh, this guy definitely seems very unintimidated by the apparatus of but yeah, impressive group of people involved with that. And then you did some late night bits, right? Or
yeah, Charlie Sanders was friendly with like the casting director Cecilia Pliva at Conan, and like he was doing a bunch of bits, and then we were doing more buffoon stuff together. So we were, I think, we got asked to do I was in my underwear a lot with Charlie, or just like some like me and Charlie. It was like the opening. Remember that desk driving bit where they would put the green screen behind him? It was the opening of Phantom Menace.
Those were intense to execute.
Correct.
Yeah.
There was like a rehearsal. That was the best part about it, though, was just seeing Conan come in at 2:00 with a bit that you had been rehearsing for a couple hours and just go, don't do this, do this, do. And he would just come in and like he knew he was. And still is, just like his brain is nuts. Like you just go, cut that, don't do that, don't do this, and then go. And you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah. Working there, I really tried to not take that for granted, just the rehearsal on the feed aspect of it, just because the osmosis of that, you just hope that sinks in, like.
Just hearing him talk for a couple minutes about those sketches each time we went in was like, invaluable. Is that a word, invaluable?
Yeah.
It is?
Yeah.
Neat.
It's one of those weird, like, flammable, inflammable things.
Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't know about those either.
So the casting director would cast you, but then would you sort of get attached to a certain writer once you worked with them, or was it always just...
At Conan?
Yeah. Would you like...
No, I think it was more like, we need a big guy in his underwear.
Okay. Gotcha.
And I was like, I'm there. Okay. We need two. And it was like, Charlie's already here, so you're coming too.
My afternoons are mostly free.
Yeah, it was like, I think it was that. There was a desk driving bit where me and Charlie were Star Wars nerds. Like he was dressed as Obi-Wan Kenobi and I was Darth Vader, and we had like a lightsaber fight, and then Conan hit us and we like rolled over the car and fell. So it was like, I feel like it was a lot of like physical weird bits.
Yeah.
There was that thing where he did like, it was like the different channels. He had the remote control.
Yeah.
And one that I did was like
satellite TV
or something. And like, it was the Blueberry Screams channel. And it just cut to a shot of an elevator opening. And when it opened, I screamed and just blueberry sauce fall out of my mouth and the elevator doors closed again. But when we were shooting it in 30 Rock, and we were on the 8th floor, like where SNL was. And I wasn't on it. I mean, this is years before.
Yeah.
And Bruce Springsteen got out of the elevator at the exact time that we were shooting like one of the other elevators. And he just looked at me like he was a comic genius and just went, and I'm covered in blueberry sauce. He just goes, hey, you got a little something.
Oh man,
right there, and walked past, and I was just like,
what
this building is bizarre, and then I learned how true that was.
What a great little moment, man. That's
it was
awesome.
nuts. All that Conan stuff was the best. Like I had a moment on Conan where I went in to get a coffee. I had like made a coffee and stepped away, and when I went back to go get it, somebody was standing there making another coffee, but had my coffee in their hand and handed it to me and was like, "Oh, this must be yours." And I was bartending at the time, so I went, "Cheers," and he went, "Oh, fuck yeah." Kind of went like that, and it was Ted Danson.
Oh,
and he heard cheers and was like, "Get out of my way!" And I was just like, "I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it. I didn't even know it was Ted Danson." Like, and then did a show with him many years later. Told him that story, and he's like, "I have no clue what you're talking about."
Oh my god!
Right. But that was Conan for me. It was like just millions of those weird moments.
Yeah, those are my
sitting
favorite.
in the hallway talking to Neil Young for 20 minutes for no reason.
Yeah. There's all kinds of like just people rubbing shoulders with people that they'll probably never, you'll just never be in that context again. Like
all of those hallways, you would just turn a corner. And literally, I remember like just turning a corner, sitting down in a chair, and then Neil Young sat down next to me. I talked to him for 20 minutes. We had a cigarette in the hallway. And
man. Oh, man, that's a great. Conan tells a story about how Neil Young like detuned his guitar as a joke or whatever, and Conan was like picked up his guitar and was like, "What the fuck is going on?" And then just heard him like cackle from the other room or whatever.
Amazing.
So then SNL, I mean, just some of the cast members at that time that you joined the show in 2008: Amy Poehler, Bill Hader, Fred Armisen, Kristen Wiig. I mean, just a fucking murderer's row time.
The tail end of that like amazing class. Daryl was still there.
That's right. Yep. And Seth Meyers, I think, was head writer. And then, so you were
my first episode was the first time Tina Fey did Sarah Palin.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were the only new cast member, right? When you joined?
Me and John Mulaney got hired that year. He got hired as a writer, and we shared an office.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How did it feel joining kind of like that established group? Or was it like, hey guys?
Terrifying. It's funny. The first episode was like, I thank myself maybe for not understanding what was happening, because the first episode was like space camp. Like just that whole week was an absolute dream. It felt like, I can't believe they're letting me do this. And then from the second week until now, right now, I've been terrified.
Okay, so the terror like took a moment. And then, man, I can't imagine that. I mean, it seems like when you join SNL, I'm sure this is different for everybody, but is it like one big oh shit moment, or is it just like all these different oh shit moments that play out depending on...
I mean, that's a great way to put it. It was set, I remember, I have like this memory now that I think about a lot now, which is like the night I got SNL, or like it was just starting to get around that I had gotten, but like it wasn't announced yet.
Gotcha, yeah.
You know, there was a ASCAT at UCB, and Seth was there. And right before we went on stage, he was like, "Hey, I don't think we should say anything about it yet, like until they announce it officially."
Gotcha, yeah.
And he was like, "I know you really want to," and I was just like, "Oh, I get it." And he was like, "Just welcome now to a world of slights for the rest of your life." And he was like, "Also, you'll never talk about anything else after this except that."
Gotcha.
And I just remember now, like it was a super, like just like he was trying to be extremely kind, and he was.
Yeah.
And it was right before we went on stage, and I remember thinking it was like this offhanded thing, but the more and more I think he was like, that moment.
Oh, wow.
After that moment, everything was different.
Yeah. God, I can't imagine.
And it's true. It's all you ever talk about.
Yeah.
But it's all I ever talked about before.
Like going in, did you like between the time that you got cast and you joined the cast? Did you talk to any like cast members? Like,
sure, I try. You know, you try and you talk to other cast members, and everyone has their journey and their story and their love or hatred for it, and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I wish that Lauren had gone, "Congratulations, now get a therapist."
Yeah.
Like immediately. When people ask now, what's my advice? I go, just like get a therapist. That's all you got to do, and you'll be fine. And I also go, like, it's over. You already won.
Yeah.
Like you already got the show. Like enjoy it. Just enjoy it until it's gone.
Yeah. That sounds wise. Yeah. It was interesting because there used to be, I mean, it's still there, but there was like both SNL and Late Night with Conan O'Brien were very connected. You know, like Conan worked on SNL, Smigel, obviously. They're both at 30 Rock, you know, Odenkirk, like all like the first writers. and actually Mike Sweeney used to told me the story. Like he used to do warm up for both.
Wow.
Yeah, and he said, I hope I'm remembering this right, but he said that he didn't factor in dress rehearsal, and he was like, "Oh fuck," because he agreed to do it, and then didn't realize that he had to do warm up twice. Like, it was like, so it was long. It was like they were long days/nights. But it is interesting that like because I think they would also be on the feed. Like you'd see. Weren't they both on the 30 Rock feed? Like, like
everything was on the feed. You would just turn it on and watch the rehearsals from Thursday on.
Wow. Yeah. No, it's always interesting. The one time I went to SNL was 2000, and it was when Radiohead played. That was really interesting. Like just to see, I saw dress rehearsal, and
who was the host?
Kate Hudson. And I think she emphasized Radiohead. She said like Radiohead or something, like the way she said the man. I was like, okay.
The best one is Patrick Stewart. He goes, ladies and gentlemen, salt and pepper. It's the greatest.
That's good.
My favorite.
I always cherish those memories. I would like seeing like McKay kind of like prowling the hallways, and
I wish.
I saw like Tom York and Radiohead, like kind of like waiting to go on. And Tom York was like kind of like bouncing with excitement. And I'm like, holy shit. Well, if Tom York is excited.
Yeah, it had like the coolness of it was never lost. You would see, like, it's just like standing there waiting to go on for a sketch, and Spielberg is standing there laughing, and you're just like, that's Steven Spielberg. And he makes a joke, and you're just like, I got to go on live TV and process that right now.
Yeah.
It was just the craziest.
Yeah, I'll process
craziest
that
of the
Sunday.
crazies. Yeah. It was absolutely insane.
And then you've done. I didn't realize how much animation you've done. Like,
what? No, I had no idea.
They took my voice and put it on. It was funny. I was scrolling through your like IMDb, and I was like, holy shit! Like Moynihan's in a ton of stuff. And then I looked, and I was like, oh, I'm at like 2021. Like I was like, I didn't like scroll back that far. But
I got kids. I'm busy. Gotta be busy.
But Secret Life of Pets is awesome, and that's like one of the few movies that I can get my 10-year-old, my 5-year-old to agree on. So that's on a lot. Like,
got it. Yeah, that's a good one.
And then Loafy, which I was happy to discover. Is there an origin story to Loafy?
Yeah, I love manatees. I just love them. Little sea cows. And my wife, for Christmas, when we like first got together, adopted a manatee. Like did like one of those things where it's like, I just got a certificate that said, here, this is your manatee. His name is Chessie. He lives in the Chesapeake Bay. He's not supposed to be there. Like it was just like a map with a weird squiggle on it.
He just like went up the intercoastal and ended up.
It looks like they took a picture of a manatee off the internet and made up a backstory, and went, thanks for $60. And there was a manatee calendar. And I was disappointed that Chessie wasn't in he didn't make the calendar.
They might as well fudge that if he's
they
not.
They should just make him November.
Yeah.
Just at least.
January would be too obvious.
I'm not, exactly. That's my birthday. I'm not that lucky. But and it just became a joke. And then I just wrote down a dumb idea about a manatee that sold weed. Because I liked the idea of like he couldn't leave his tank, but it was such good weed that people would have to like break into a zoo to get it. But I also thought if it was ever an animated series, you wouldn't have to move from one spot. Because I just wanted to do like a Dr. Katz, but with a manatee.
Yeah.
Just do like an improvised cartoon, but then it just became this weird, fun little project to learn how to do. I just wanted to start doing more animation, and that was kind of my first low stakes, weird. Like, I'll do Loafy.
Yeah, it's really funny.
Thanks.
And Will McLaughlin, is he do voice in it?
The greatest. Yeah, he's the Colonel. Which is a nickname he got, what we call him the Colonel PCR.
Oh, yeah.
He plays an eagle named the Colonel.
He is hyper intelligent, that guy. Super smart guy.
One of the best just humans in the world. I really love everything about him. One of the best reveals of a human ever. As I went to Will's house, I was like, I don't drink very often, but I remember being like, this is a night where like I was hammered. And like it was one of those nights where you go, remember that night?
Yeah.
And I just remember walking into Will McLaughlin's room and he had a collection of tin robots. And I was just like, well, that's fucking boy. Sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to curse.
No.
But it was one of the greatest reveals ever. I was like, of course Will McLaughlin collects tin robots. They're beautiful. And it was amazing. I love that man.
Yeah, we bonded just because, I don't know, because we're both named Will, probably more than
Smart,
anything.
that's
good. But I did a thing. Did you ever watch the Knife Guys? Those dudes, they kind of became internet famous. They're pretty well loved.
Oh, like, in the like
just got like the guy like
in the QVC world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. I did kind of like a internet video thing. It was supposed to be all in the QVC world, but he and this guy, Will Greenberg, also really funny. I cast them to do the Knife Guys thing. And McLaughlin, he could have done that for like 72 hours straight. Like
I was in his Buff True Muscle show, which was like a parody of Mr. Goodbody, where he was in that jumpsuit with the muscle. And he did it at UCB. We did it for months or years probably. And it was one of my favorite things I've ever been a part of. He's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, he does not drop the ball, that guy. And then you did The Simpsons, which had to be like, I mean,
the coolest.
Yeah,
just nuts.
Yeah, that's cool. Is that? Do they always do table reads, or is that for just?
I got a call and like ended up in a studio very quickly and did it, and then just like a couple weeks later saw my name in the Simpsons font and was like, oh my God. Like as a kid, like you're just like, I can't believe it. But it was a very quick thing. I didn't get to go to a table read. I think like I could, but I just couldn't make it because of SNL or something like that.
Yeah. That whole process fascinates me. We had an amazing experience. One of the animators, like I think he basically, when they like Simpsonize like a person, like he's the guy that kind of like does that or whatever. But we had lunch with him because my wife works with his wife, and it was so cool because my daughter's obsessed with The Simpsons. She's literally like gone through the whole thing. She's 10. She really likes to draw, and he like at the beginning of the lunch, he was like, how many points does Bart's hair have? And she's like 9. And he's like, okay, I'll talk to you. And
wow.
So
why did I know that?
Did you know that?
I did.
Oh, wow.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know if I would.
I don't know if I'm disappointed or proud of myself right now.
I'd be going
both
to be
a little,
proud.
I think. Yeah.
I mean, I assume you still like the animation process. Is that?
Yeah, like, I love it. If it's the only thing I did, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
It's great. I love it. I think I just after SNL, I started getting a couple like voiceover stuff. I got a call from Dan Scanlon, who directed Monsters University, and he was just like, I saw this sketch you did, and I had like one line in a sketch. It was like a digital short. We were in pajamas. We were playing little kids stabbing each other. I don't even remember what it was. He was like, I just thought you were funny. If you want to play this like, and I was like one of the villains in Monsters University.
Oh,
and I
that's
had a
awesome.
couple lines, but I got to like go to Pixar and like record a couple, and then like because I was there, I got to improvise a little. So then like they used some of that, and then I got to go back, and like it got a little bigger, and it was just like. But that was kind of like my first like huge into like real like how they do. Like I got to go to Pixar and like tour the thing and go record there. And then Inside Out came around. I got to do it again with Paula Poundstone, and like that was super fun. And just got super lucky with animation and have stuck with it. And like at one point it was on like 10 cartoons, and I was like, this is the best.
I mean, is it nice post SNL to be like slightly more anonymous or whatever? Does that factor in at all, or is it not really related to that?
That's funny. I have no clue how to answer that question because like I don't leave the house anyway. Like, it's just like the pandemic was like the greatest thing because I was just like, sweet.
Yeah.
Now I can't leave. Like now it's just not my fault anymore. And like yeah, no, I roam pretty freely.
Yeah.
I mean, I look like every white dude.
Oh, nice.
So I think they just go like I go to Comic-Con and just walk around, and people go like, how much is this? And I'm like, I don't work here.
Oh, that's great. So you're not, because I was wondering if people like harassed you and wanted to do like Drunk Uncle or Guy Fieri or like.
I don't get that. I don't get that. I get like, it's funny in New York.
Oh, yeah.
The last time I was back in New York, I walked out of the hotel and I was a little bit like, garbage. Like, I miss this place.
Yeah,
I was like a little bit having a moment of like, oh, I grew up here. The craziest time of my life was here.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm back. And like, I've been a dad in California behind a fence for 3 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Because of the pandemic. And like, I was just having a very sentimental moment of New York. And I just hear, Moynihan's back! And like some like cab went back and some guy screamed, Moynihan's back. And I was like, it's not like I'm Derek Jeter. I was like, what the hell just happened? Like,
Like strawberry. Like,
well, it was just weird. It's like that feeling of New York, of kind of like, we on Saturday Night Live, you're our team, pal. Like,
Yeah,
you know, like
yeah,
it was just like, Del Keenan, he's the best, asshole. Like, all right. It was awesome. It was an awesome feeling of just like, someone just screamed, Moynihan's back. That was real sweet. That made me feel like I lived here.
So I saw your Party Down characters really fucking funny.
Thank you. It's so crazy. Like, I love that show so much. And then to be able to get a part on an episode that Ken Marino directed.
Yeah.
Like, it was...
That
was another one of those like comedy fantasy camp days of like, okay, I got the pink ties on. This is the best. I love this show. I can't believe I'm on it. Like,
I know,
it
especially with the kind of the bonus aspect of the time that it elapsed.
Mm-hmm.
That was very cool. One of the things that I'm hoping to do with this podcast is kind of like
save the world.
Save the world.
Yeah,
yeah.
You should. That's nice of you.
Yeah, one manatee at a time. But I'm talking to a lot of like UCB people to start out, but I plan on talking to like stand-ups, humorists, like just people from all over the map. Part of what I'm curious about is kind of like trying to make money off of something that comes naturally, basically. You know, it's like, I can't imagine you not being a comedian, basically. Like, but then you're like, how the hell, like, I got to figure out how to make a living off of this. Like,
yeah, that was a weird transition. I think like I had a real big wake up call when SNL ended, which was like a little bit like, okay, remember that weird thing you wanted as a kid? Well, it happened, and it lasted for 10 years, and now it's done.
Yeah.
All the stuff that you thought about just happened.
Yeah, yeah.
Now what?
Yeah.
And there was a little bit of that, and it was like, I went like, well, Mom, I'm going to do the sitcom on CBS. Like that, like I got a job. They like me. And it was like, then that was over. And then it was like, oh, I'll go do this other one. It's a Tina Fey show. It's amazing. And then that one's gone. And you're like, and you start to get scared. But I think, thank goodness for the pandemic in a way for me, because that's when I learned like that I loved animation, and I made a cartoon in my closet. And that drive that we all had at UCB that was like, we're going to spend $6 of our $10 for food on props for our comedy show.
Yeah.
And we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And we're going to get it done. Like that kind of drive was a little bit gone after SNL. I was exhausted.
Oh,
like, you know,
understandably
like it was,
so. Yeah.
It was also like a little bit like what just happened.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic was a little bit of like slow down and think, and like then it was like, oh, you can write and you can do this, and like it almost made it where it was like I reset and went, I love working with these people, and that's what I want to do. So seek out ways to work with people you enjoy working with. Like it just changed everything and kind of set me on a different. I wrote a children's book.
Yeah.
Like just a bunch of like weird things that I never would have done because I was forced to slow down and kind of go, hey, that crazy part is over. Now you're an adult with kids. Like, and think about it. Your wife and daughter was SNL for 10 years, and now your wife and daughter are your real wife and daughter. So it was like a little bit of that. It was a little bit of like, oh boy, I got to learn how to do this business. And also moving to Los Angeles and trying to fit in this, like in actual Hollywood, is fascinating. Because like I'm a fat dude from Westchester. and they act like it when I'm out here.
Oh man,
it's amazing.
Oh God, it's amazing. Like I love seeing the people from that scene and just kind of how everybody's kind of like stuck together and worked together a lot, because it's like I think comedy and music, there's a lot of like parallels, but most good bands were together, like knew each other in high school or college or whatever, you know what I mean? Like most like, and a lot of good like comedy groups same thing, you know, they're early 20, you know, or post college or whatever, you know.
Well, it's crazy now to get a you know, an email that says like, hey, do you want to go out for this? And it's like, oh, that I worked with that person 25 years ago. And now they're producing a Broadway show, or they're doing this, or they've written, and like it's absolutely insane, and a huge lesson in like, thank goodness I was nice to that person, or thank goodness I wasn't a jerk to that person when I was teaching them and I got SNL and left, because they just put me in a movie, like and like I was their 101 teacher, like or something, like it's bizarre.
I still have a mental spreadsheet of like people of just like, oh, Jeff Hiller. I've never had a bad interaction with Jeff Hiller. You know, like I still like all that stuff is still very much alive in my brain. Even if I
wish I could say the same about Jeff Hiller. No, I'm just kidding. He's the greatest.
There's only so many sideways Draculas that can happen before something goes wrong.
Oh, Jeff Hiller. Jeff Hiller was Kendrick. I mean, like the famous character. He had like it's so funny that like I think about characters from UCB sketch shows as if they are like I'm like, you don't know, like everyone knows Kendrick.
Ridiculous Larry, you don't know Ridiculous Larry, like
Sideways Dracula. There's no difference between Sideways Dracula and like Samurai Deli, and like they're all the same.
That's awesome. And then so you still do improv, right? Like with some regularity, or?
I have been doing a lot more recently, yeah.
How is that with, I'm always curious because, I mean, I didn't do the improv for a long time. I did some stuff at the LA Theater, but it was only just like a storytelling show that Finkelstein and I did. I'm always curious because there's some people, like I talked to Jackie Clark, she doesn't really perform that much anymore. I talked to Colton, and Seth Morris, they still perform quite a bit. I'm curious to like at this age.
I stopped for a super long time. Like I think I tried to force it a lot when I was still at SNL. Like I was still doing Stepfathers as much as I could. I was on a team called Stepfathers when I got SNL.
Yeah.
And like would try and do ASCAP, but it was just physically insane. Like it was like 72-hour days and then go try and do 4 hours of free improv. Like it was too much. I took a break for a while. I got a little burnt out from it. And like now I'm in a good spot where like I do it enough where like I enjoy going to do it again, but it a little bit feels like picking up the bike and getting back on it and
I was
practicing.
curious about that. Yeah.
Like it's weird. I'm in a weird phase where like I'm much more patient and quiet and trying to listen. Like I feel like I'm relearning after the pandemic a little bit.
That's really interesting. I was curious about that.
But and in the same vein, and like I think this is really shitty to say, but like I don't care as much.
But that's good.
Like it's not like, you know, it's like if people start to like talk about the show afterwards, I'm a little bit like, it's over.
Yeah.
We made all of that up on the spot.
Yeah.
And we're all going home.
Yeah. It's like, kind of the point.
Yeah. And like that part of it is, it's kind of nice to just go like I'm going to go play horse with myself.
Yeah.
I can just reteach myself how to get good at these basics and listen. And then you could do and then it starts to, and you feel like you're in, you know, it feels like you're in Cage Match again all of a sudden.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with listening, you know, like.
I disagree, but no.
You sound like you were in Police Chief Rumble.
Way. Yeah. Police Chief Rumble's only rule was yes and Sinbad. That was it.
Well, Bobby, man, I really appreciate you doing this. And it was so fun to talk to you and just get a sense of the LA Bobby.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't do these interviews. Thank you for reminding me of the stuff I've done and making me feel nice. And it's good to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Bobby Moynihan. I loved hearing about Police Chief Rumble. And I can't believe I almost went my whole life without knowing about Sideways Dracula. Dan Powell and Nick Mugis are two great examples of people who are really funny improvisers, but ended up pursuing careers behind the camera. Dan went on to produce and direct shows like Inside Amy Schumer, Life and Beth, and I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson. Mugis is a really talented editor who has worked on shows like Human Giant, Broad City, and The Chris Gethard Show. Life and Comedy is recorded at Jett Road Studios. Please rate and review the show and follow Jett Road and Life and Comedy on Instagram. YouTube too. Much appreciated.